Good.
Ready? Okay. I am going to talk about financial and health literacy programs and incorporating them at the Salvation Army. My vision is to empower the lower socioeconomic class of Morgan County to improve their financial literacy and health literacy as well as their families through access to financial and health literacy programs by the Jacksonville Salvation Army. In doing so, I did a needs assessment, and of the poverty level in 2009, 56% of those in poverty were African Americans, 17% were whites, 28% were Hispanics, and 17% were other. 35% have only a high school diploma or a GED, and 20% have less than a high school diploma or a GED. Basically, if we were to educate them, it would improve. They would have improvement, which in turn would lead to a reduction in poverty. In the Chicago area, between banks and agencies, they have already started implementing programs which have been successful. They are 5 to 10 week programs between banks and community organizations for financial classes. There's also been one that's been incorporated into a homeless shelter, and they both have shown that they are working very well. One of the things that's important is the CRA, which is the Community Reinvestment Act, which was started in 1977. It is basically where banks are supposed to reach out to the community and make cohorts and things that can improve the financial literacy of our lower socioeconomic community. Some of the literature that I came across, of course, was with Caskey, and in his literature on adult literacy, he talks about Shiner and Sheridan, who conducted an effective financial management program within 14 organizations. Within those organizations, between 1997 and 2001, did show that there was an enhanced financial ability that happened when they were given the financial classes. Lastly, on the subject of finances, I wanted to talk about an application for phones, for iPhones, which is called iExpensit. It's a budget program that can be used by social workers when you're out in the community, when you have to go to someone's home who cannot come into your agency, so it kind of helps you take your office to them. The best thing about it is that you're able to build a budget for the person that you're working with and give them a visual aid on where their money's going, which is very, very important because a lot of people don't realize where their money goes. It just kind of flies out. And when you give them a visual on where it's going, they're able to see it and to better learn how to budget. Switching over to the health literacy, I found information from Spears. She stated that 36% of those in poverty have limited health literacy. And she discusses how people are not able to read the labels of the lower socioeconomic community. They're not able to read the labels on correctly. Some are not able to even understand doctors' recommendations for, like, if they have a certain type of chemical or something that they shouldn't have, something that they should avoid. They can't understand reading the labels on those products to find out if that's not what they're supposed to have, to stay away from it. They are unable to calculate calories, portion size, things like that. So she also discusses how if we were to build health literacy programs into our curriculums at places, the main goal is to teach them how to eat right and healthy, how to choose foods that are more appropriate for them, for their bodies. Rule of thumb is eating vegetables and fruits, of course, and we all know that they're really good for us. So to have them eat them would leave them full longer because they're built for our bodies. So we obviously obtain being full longer, which leads to us being less hungry, which leads to eating less, which actually leads to less trips to get other food at the food banks. One other statistic was the Maryland Health and Nutrition Literacy Study, and in their conduction of their study, 41% were found to have limited health literacy, and of those that were on the lower socioeconomic level, 22% had a high likelihood of limited health literacy. So basically, I developed a strategic plan in order to incorporate the programs into the Salvation Army. My goal is to incorporate them before May of 2013. My first objective is to implement a financial literacy program within the Salvation Army. My strategy is to design the program criteria, establish the location for the criteria, obtain materials for the courses, and then of course implement the program. The activities are to collaborate with staff and board of directors with the Salvation Army, obtain grant money, donations, fundraising, etc., to bring in funds, and to secure funds for the program. The product is dates, times, and the length that the course would be and when they would be given. My measurement is that the knowledge and the skills will improve among the clients, and their usage with the agencies then would be lessened. We wouldn't see them as often. My method will be to conduct pre-test and post-test surveys to ensure the effectiveness of the programs, to make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the responsibility would of course be me and Alan, hopefully, and whoever else may be designated for that task. And my timeline, I hope to implement between January and May of 2013. My second objective is actually completely the same. I won't go over it because it is exactly the same. It's just for the health literacy program itself. So it's 2 objectives, but 2 different courses. I conducted a SWOT analysis, both internal and external, of the Salvation Army. The strengths for the Salvation Army: that they have great leadership, they have dedicated and experienced employees, their networking and relationships in the communities they have established with many places. They have an active board of directors that meets regularly. They have a long-time community presence. And their weaknesses are that they have limited physical workspace. It's a little overcrowded. The rooms are a little small. They have a leaking roof in the church part. They have internet web pages that need updating. I actually discovered that there's a web page and a Facebook page, but they're not really maintained very well. And there's a lack of social service staff. They only really have 1 staff, and they really could use more than that. Just a plug for me. Anyway, their externals then, their opportunities are the growth within the community. Just this past yesterday, we actually saw, I believe, 4 or 5 more people who had moved into the community who came. So there is movement going on, and that's not the first time that that's happened since I've been volunteering and doing work there. So there is a growth in the community that's happening. There's an increased demand for networking of computers. They do have that. It's just it needs to be a little bit more. There just needs to be more of it. Then there is philanthropic programs, of course, which the financial and the health literacy would be one, and then of course later maybe others could also be implemented. As long as we're working on that benevolency part, that's really great. They could possibly use a new building, and they are, I believe, in the steps for doing that. I'm not sure how far along that is, though. I hadn't gotten that far. Possible partnerships with banks, and of course to work on the financial program part would be great, or with the other agencies that do it. And then another great one is the expansion of the Central Food Bank, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I had actually called and I interviewed the lady who works there, and she said that they have actually purchased the old Pepsi distribution place, which is twice the size of what they have now, so they're actually doubling their space, which is going to be wonderful. So they'll actually have more food and stuff available, you know, to help in that area until we can actually fix the problem or work on making it a little bit better. And then they have recent good press, because Alan just lately was interviewed by the newspaper for the bell ringing program, and so the Salvation Army does get a lot of good coverage. Threats are a decline or loss in funding. Of course, y'all know that there's been budget cuts and things with funding, so that's an issue. We also have, you know, a poor economy, so while that's the way it is, it's an issue in itself. And there's also a language barrier. I do believe that there's not anybody at the Salvation Army that knows how to speak Spanish, and I know that that could probably be an issue. So, but we do have sign language, which is yay. Okay, so we have that. So there are some areas that need to be worked on with language. I created a budget chart. I was quite modest on what I felt the person doing this should get. I'm not really sure how much they should get, so I did an average by looking at the computer and doing some, you know, seeing how much people get paid. So I'll just kind of highlight $40,000 for the salary for the person that would do have the position, benefits that they would have, their compensation for other things like insurances and things like that. And then these are, there's like a conference, a yearly conference that the person should go to keep up with the financial literacy things that are changing, you know, new criteria, things like that are available. Equipment, of course, that would need to be purchased for the person that's going to be doing the job. Supplies, pencils, anything that you would need for the programs themselves. Other direct expenses. And then, anyway, so it comes to a complete total, and I came with $160,000 roughly, a little over that, for the program itself, in budgeting. Basically, financial and health literacy programs would be beneficial to the Salvation Army. They would help the lower socioeconomic community very much. They would be very beneficial to the community as a whole because you lift up those people to a better standard. We need to help, or we need to attempt to educate the lower socioeconomic class in every way that's possible. So basically I come up with the two phrases that I just think fit perfect. And if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach the man to fish, then he is fed for a lifetime. It's kind of the same concept. And then you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But there's plenty of ways to make him thirsty. So, you know, if we can just implement ways to try to get the people to want to have to take those classes, and there's several ways to do that. And that is it. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On your budget chart, was that total figure over the 6-year life of?
I did like a 3-year,
three
program, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's split up. The first side was actually all the things. The second side on it was the 3-year thing, and then down at the bottom for all those 3 years.
And it included both parts? Is both objectives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The literacy and the health?
And health, yes, correct.
Would health and literacy be in one course, or would they be two separate classes?
I don't know. That's something I will have to discuss when we collaborate together for, you know, making up the courses, whether they should be, you know, like an hour-and-a-half class, and so half of it's this and half of it's that, or if it's just two separate classes at different times and different days. You know, I'm not sure how that would work yet. I will need to talk with Alan about those things. Anything else?
Very good. Thank you.